Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm the Political Conversationalist. I apologize for the nature of this video. I know it's typically out of order, but I've had to pick up a lot of extra hours at work this week, and I definitely ran out of time. This might have played better as a podcast, however, I don't have a medium to present that to you in. The issue I'm going to talk about today is how do we keep our kids and our teens safe? And normally, when you hear about this, typically the liberal side of politics sways this into a debate on gun control, and the only thing they're willing to see as an issue in teen safety or kid safety is mass shootings. And albeit those are horrible occurrences that should never occur, and I will outline a few ways we can prevent and lessen the impact of those near the end of this video, those aren't the leading cause or anywhere near a leading cause of teen death or kid death. The number one cause of teen death is accidents, and 73% of those accidents are car accidents, followed by accidental poisoning, and followed by accidental firearms discharge. Now, no one's really talking about this. No one's really talking about how, by and large, the thing killing our kids is not AR-15s. It's actually Honda Civics. Maybe because that's not a good talking point. But I think there is something we should look into, and some other people have already proposed this idea before. Maybe we should federally change the age at which a person is able to drive. In most nations around the world, you're not able to get your driver's license until you're 18. However, in the United States, most states have it at 16. And from some statistics I looked up that I'll link down below, it's twice as likely for a 16 or a 17-year-old to be in a car accident as it is for an 18 or a 19-year-old to be in a car accident. So 2 years really does make a lot of difference. Now, the second main cause of death for teens and kids is homicide, and that's very sad. But factors that increase a child's likelihood to be involved in violence or homicide are by and large gangs, low parental involvement, and drug or alcohol abuse by the teen themselves or by their parents. Now, low parental involvement can't really be fixed by the government, but drug abuse and gang violence definitely can be helped by the government. Drug abuse is a major epidemic in recent years. Some ways to lessen it are to stiffen penalties for drug crimes. There aren't very many people selling drugs if they're all in prison, and people will be less likely to use and or sell drugs if there's a good chance they'll get more than just a proverbial slap on the wrist. Suspicion-based testing for welfare recipients, which I outlined in a video titled Drug Testing Welfare Recipients, which has seemed to work in places like Arizona, and that will keep people honest who are relying on governmental benefits to keep them out of poverty. It will keep them also off of drugs, which is good for them and good for the society as a whole. And we also need to hold doctors and pharmacies accountable when it comes to drugs that are easily abused, or like Xanax or codeines. Currently, in most states, there is no limit to how many or how much or how often a doctor can prescribe some of these drugs to people that are very often sold on the street and abused. And currently, pharmacies just always have to do whatever the doctors tell them to. So definitely we could look into maybe requiring doctors not to just constantly prescribe these extremely powerful, normally painkillers or mood stabilizers that people are abusing, and look into other less addictive drugs. And ways to lessen gang violence are also pretty complex, but the government currently uses a weed and seed program in over 3,000 places in the U.S. By weeding, they mean they imprison or try to arrest at least the worst gang members, those who commit murder or are big into drug trafficking and things like that. And they put money into the poorer neighborhoods where these gangs are prevalent to prevent children, mainly children, from feeling a need to actually join these gangs. So if we have a no tolerance policy on gangs and every single person who's ever been in a gang gets immediately arrested, well, firstly, the justice system will be madly overcrowded. Secondly, those gang members that are left will band together and likely become very desperate and do a lot more heinous crimes than they normally would. And so this weed and seed program is kind of the best of both worlds. With weeding, you get rid of those who are dangerous to themselves or others, and with seeding, you prevent further members from joining, and hopefully, you get members who are of lower standing and who do fewer crimes to actually leave that gang. I believe this program should be in every major city in America. If not now, then it should start with being in the more populous cities in America. Now, the third leading cause of death for teens is unfortunately suicide. There is very little the government can do to prevent suicide. Most of that falls on the parents and the teen themselves. The only thing I can think of that the government can do is to provide more funding for counseling in schools and maybe to make a mandatory yearly check meeting with your school counselor just to make sure that kids are mentally being taken care of. Lastly, I'd like to talk about mass shootings. Mass shootings are pretty hard to stop. Only half of public schools in the United States have a law enforcement officer assigned to them. I think that's kind of ridiculous. If we know people are targeting schools because there's going to be little resistance, because these are soft target zones, as some people have called them, because people are going to be unarmed in there, there's going to be a lot of people in there, then we definitely need to assign police officers who we can trust to these schools to watch over these kids, to prevent these shootings. Those things, uh, there are a lot of shootings that don't happen because of what they normally call education resource officers, who were there to stop it before it happened. Secondly, uh, a way that the staff of the school could respond more quickly would be for all the staff of every school in the United States, at least every public school, to have walkie-talkies or two-way radios so that they could communicate quickly. In some of these mass shootings, if you look at the time of events, there were entire classes who didn't know that the school was on lockdown or didn't know anything was going on at all. Walkie-talkies could prevent that, which means more kids could get to a safe space, which means more doors could be barricaded, they could hide. It would just be better for them because they could respond much more quickly to an event and then wait on the police to do what they needed to do. The safety of our kids is a very complex issue, and too often I think it is boiled down to mass shootings. And too often the deaths of children in mass shootings are used as a political talking point for gun control. And it takes a lot to keep our kids safe. And if we look at what's killing them now, gun control wouldn't be a very effective measure at that. Anyway, I apologize for this video being a little informal and the recording not being top notch as it normally is. I'm sure the next video we have coming out will be on taxation, and that will be back to the previous format, which will basically be like the slideshow with music in the background. For this video, it's basically just going to be a podcast. I apologize for that, but thanks for watching.